Thank you so much, Jen. Really appreciate it.
All right, take care, bye.
Mute and start video. Hello, all.
Good job, Gary.
Well, I think it's really Mia who deserves the kudos.
I would like all the kudos, please.
Okay, they're
Switching over,
We can't have too
switching
many
over from
kudos.
Courtney. That's all.
Yes, I was going to say, I don't know if it's Storm or personnel, but
No, it's
Yeah,
just
you-
the first
you-
day kinks.
you came to the rescue.
So should I
Thank
make you the
you.
host, Gary? You're welcome.
Sure. What does that mean?
So
I will
who
have to
usually records the meeting for you?
Courtney does.
Okay, then I will stay and I will record it, but
Oh,
you
you-
won't see me.
You don't have, if you want me to, I can be the host.
Well, it's just about whose account it records to, and I want it to record to the town account, so
Okay,
I'll just leave it running, but you won't see me, and you are the co-host, you can let people in, okay?
very good.
All right.
All right, so let's see. Thank you all for your patience on this. I don't know whether it was weather or personnel, but either way, we are here and we are now. So we will move forward. Yay. So I'm assuming we have a quorum.
Dan is trying to get on.
Who is Wellfleet Zoom 1? Is that Mia?
I think that was me.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're good. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting, which I have sent to you, and thank you once again, Susan, for doing that. Does anyone have any questions, or would we like to move forward with a motion for the minutes? Who would like to move the minutes?
Move the minutes.
Excellent. Is there a second?
I'm on the first or the second.
You can be the second.
Oh.
Thank you very much. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote on the minutes. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Any opposed or abstentions? Very good. Okay, so let us move on to the meat of the meeting. I have some information about the buy down. And the dates of the info sessions, they'll all be Zoom sessions, but the first one is on Saturday, the 14th of January, and that's at 10 o'clock. And the second one is in the evening, and that's on Monday, the 23rd of January at 7 o'clock. We will have a flyer very shortly, which I will send to you. But really the idea is to get out and tell people. I know, Maddie, you volunteered to help. So do you think people are looking at physical flyers these days?
Mm.
I don't know how, right, don't know, but
Maybe in the marketplace.
yeah. So is if people are going out into the world, like the post office and
Hmm.
I
this
think
stuff.
the marketplace.
Okay, so I'm gonna send you shortly, I don't mean today, but as soon as I get it, the flyer for that event. So if
Great.
people could really just take personal responsibility, if you see it there, great, someone's got it. If not, put it up. And certainly the marketplace, both post offices, any of the churches
Mhm.
would be good. At the food, anybody volunteering or going to the food pantry at this point, putting it up there would certainly be helpful.
Common Table is willing to put flyers in their bags of food.
Super. So,
Oh, that's a
so if
great idea.
someone wants to take, are you still working there? Sharon?
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
No,
So if someone wants to
No,
take,
operation now.
okay, if someone wants to take responsibility for that, and again, the idea is there's nothing bad here, that there's an opportunity to get $175,000 towards the purchase of a house. And we did get new limits on the house size, the house price. And they're much more generous than they have been in the past. We have to still get them affirmed by DHCD, but based upon the calculations by the CDP, for a, if I remember correctly, for a two-family house, it starts at about 425, and it goes up for a four-family house to just over 500,000. So the conundrum obviously is finding a house that someone can qualify the mortgage for, because if they're starting at even 4.25, even if we give them 175, they still have to be able to qualify for a $250,000 mortgage. And they still have to be making less than 80% of the median income. So it's a bit of a conundrum. And we talked about it before, but we hope that we can find someone. And if we need to provide more resources, we'll look at that in the form of a down payment assistance. Yeah, sorry.
What's the limit on a one-family house?
One bedroom.
They're bedrooms.
Karen, did I say family? I meant bedrooms.
Oh, okay.
My apologies. I can tell you what they are.
So that's a two-bedroom is 425 and a four-bedroom is 500 plus? Is that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I can quickly find that. But yes, it's numbers like that. And the numbers will be on the flyer, as well as the oh, here we go, buy down flyer. Okay, here it is. For a one-bedroom house, it's 410,000. For a two-bedroom house, it's 445,000. For a three-bedroom house, it's 479. And for a four-bedroom house, it's 506. So one bedroom, 410, two bedroom, 445, three bedroom, 479, four bedroom, 506.
But regardless of those numbers, each person would get $175,000.
Correct. You are correct, Susan. And just for the sake of argument, the median income upper limit for two people is 61,000. And if they have any children, for the sake of argument, a four-person would be 77,000. So the hope is that someone making that amount of money could qualify for a mortgage to buy a house in the $400,000 range.
And Gary, is that gross?
Yes, that is gross.
Okay, so I will call Trudy at Fox and Crow and but depending on how many meals they send out in a day, we'll probably just send it out on one day, or probably the
Sure.
same people there. But
Does
so
it-
can I get into town hall and make copies, or?
I
Do we know
think
anything about
probably
that?
what to do is, if you think of how many copies you want, you could either do it yourself or let me know. And I'd probably then ask Rebecca to make copies
Okay,
for us, and then just leave them in the box outside of town hall.
yeah.
Does anyone still have any relationship with the school? Because it would sure be great to get it to the school. So we'll have to figure out how to get it to the school. I'll take that action.
Well,
I-
do you
I-
mean,
I-
do you mean, do we know any teachers? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, somebody still,
No, I know Kathy Ferry. She lives next door.
and is she currently teaching?
Yes.
So you might talk to her about it, and we'll do the same. There used to be, frankly, it was the school nurse who was the contact for distribution. So, but I'm sure we can.
I've been in touch with the school nurse. I think I have her email. I don't know her, but I'm happy to, send her the flyer and an
Sure.
email.
So I would say it can't hurt, and if multiple people send her the same flyer, that's great.
Yeah.
So I will get the flyer out to you. We are thinking that the deadline for applications will be in March. And that the lottery will be the first week in April to choose a winner. So there's still quite a bit of time for people who are interested in doing it. The other thing that I want to let you know is that, excuse me, we have decided that we're going to give a scholarship, quote unquote, for the first-time homebuyers class. So that'll be on the flyer as well. So if you know anybody who's interested in buying a house, who is from Wellfleet or works in Wellfleet, we will cover the cost of that class, which is it's either $100 or maybe it's $200 for two people. And it's an online class now, no classroom. So they will have to take that course in order to qualify, but we'd be happy to, if they haven't already taken it in the last 2 years, we'd be happy to pay for them to go.
Gary,
Yep,
I came in the middle of this conversation, sorry.
sure. We were having trouble getting the meetings.
Yeah, is this a flyer something that you'd want, like the Wellfleet Community Forum to send around to their email list?
I don't think it can hurt. I mean, more people, the more people, the better, I would think.
If you send it to me electronically, I'll give it to John and he can ask the forum.
Great, I'll do that. Okay, so any other thoughts on getting the word out about the buy down? Okay, so go ahead, Sharon, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What about an announcement at a select board meeting?
Yeah,
And have somebody post it on Facebook? The Wellfleet Community Space?
who is there someone want to take that responsibility?
I don't have a Facebook
I
account.
don't have a Facebook.
I just look at it every now and then.
You'll do it, Karen?
Yeah.
Thank you. I hesitate to ask, is anyone here like do social media or tweet or Twitter or whatever it is? And if so, feel free. I don't know how you have followers or there's a distribution list, but
I'm on Trump's list.
oh, right.
I'm kidding.
Well, it'd be interesting. I think he's having some problems getting a place in Florida.
Oh, yeah. I
I
heard
read that today. Did everyone see that? That
Oh.
people at Mar-a-Lago are questioning whether he can live there?
Like, doesn't he own that place?
That's
He
part of
does,
his
but there's a
contract,
restriction,
the real estate, yeah.
You have to live there.
Neighbors don't know.
right? But anyway, let's not get bogged down.
Gary,
Yes,
Gary, what about
putting a notice in the Independent.
Yeah, we're going to send out a press release, John.
Okay.
Um,
My
And
question.
that's all part of this package. And all of this should be done next Wednesday, which is our CDP meeting, Wednesday morning. So I'll have it for you just before Christmas. Okay. Anything else on the buy down? So the next topic is the ADU and the AADU program. And I've asked Sharon, who's really been leading the charge, and maybe Olga, if she wants to jump in on two things really. Where are we with the planning board and a new zoning bylaw? And the second one is, what can we do to promote the AADU program better? You want to
Okay.
take it, Sharon?
Yeah, so the planning board, it's an interesting little dance we're doing. And each meeting, I think, oh, we're getting closer, and then we sort of, take some steps back. But this last one, I do feel like we got a little bit of movement. We have planning board members who before were either on the fence or relatively negative. They're kind of sort of leaning in the direction. One of the big problems is that they're very concerned that we lose AADUs if we allow ADUs. So that's sort of, it's hard to tease the two topics apart. We're working, Olga and Karen and I are working to figure out ways to support the ADUs, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the way we left it at the end of this last meeting on Tuesday was that maybe they would go for a combined bylaw, which Olga had started with, but then, it just seemed like they weren't going to go for that either. But where a combined bylaw for ADU and AADU, where you could have one and change it to the other if you so desired. So for example, if someone had got a special permit for an AADU and they had a tenant in it and their tenant started making more money, well, we don't want to kick the tenant out and we don't want to tell them they can't make more money. So that person, the landlord, if they like that tenant, they can say, okay, we'll make it an ADU. And there's still some confusion in my mind about the tax abatement piece, but that's a little separate. And likewise, if they have an ADU and they just feel like it's their civic responsibility to make an AADU, they could do that. And then they definitely get the tax credit. So Olga offered valiantly to draft a possible solution. What are your thoughts on this, Olga?
Well, I did one already just as an exercise to see if they could be combined, and I thought they could. I should say, though, that what came out of the meeting was, let's forget enforcement. That is not our issue. We have to have a bylaw that holds water. But if enforcement is not happening, it's our concern, but it's not anything we can do something about. So that kind of relieved us, anyone who's writing this draft, of having an issue, having a problem with the enforcement. We'll just get a bylaw that looks good, that is legal, and go from there. I too am confused about the tax abatement. Somebody, I think, mentioned that there are pre-existing tax abatements, and we need clarification about a number of things, and I'm slowly trying to do that to get the kinks out. But I plan to write something with a lot of sidebars that say, okay, here's an issue that we haven't resolved in town or whatever, but try to get it a whole piece by the next meeting, which is January 6th, if you want.
Please keep it simple.
Jan, did you have, I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead, Gary.
No, Jan, did you have a comment? I think I saw your hand up. No? So we already have the AADU bylaw, so this would be amending that bylaw?
Well, we were going to say they both require special permits. The special permits should not be any different. They're looking for the same qualities, that
Okay,
it meets the code, that it doesn't, offend zoning and so forth. So there's no difference. It's just, are you going to call it an AADU or an ADU? You get the tax abatement or you don't. You have
Well, wait a minute.
income restrictions or you don't.
You could, if I remember correctly, Olga, the tax abatement is a separate piece of legislation. It's outside of the zoning
Mhm.
bylaw.
I heard that, and one of my questions is, why isn't it in the bylaws? Is there a reason? Because I've been hearing some people get it, but they don't have an AADU.
Right, I was
Well,
just going
how's
to
that?
make the same comment, that you could have an ADU. You could rent it affordably and still qualify for the tax abatement, even though it wasn't an AADU.
So then what's the difference?
I think one is certified via the permitting process of the AADU. The other one, there has to be some other way for the town to certify that in fact it's being rented affordably, both in terms of the rent being charged as well as the applicant.
Does an ADU also have affordable rent limits?
No, the market, so the idea behind the ADUs, and one of the reasons that they're being adopted by many Cape towns is that they don't have those financial pieces. The landlord and the tenant do not have to submit that paperwork every year. And if the tenant's rent goes up or down, it doesn't make any difference to anybody. And that the rent is actually sort of governed by the market, because the units are no bigger than 1,200 square feet. And, we could alter that. We could make them smaller even. And they must be rented year round. And so when you're renting something year round here and it's small, I mean, it's just more rental. That's what we're after, is more rentals, because we just don't have them. And it's not going to be likely that anyone's going to pay, for example, summertime rents for a year-round rent here. Does that make sense?
Sort of. I mean, someone who has more money than someone who has less money could just steal it out from under the person with less money. by
Well,
paying more rent.
potentially, you're sort of, I feel like one of the problems with the planning board is that they're always looking for the very worst in people. And I think, I think those people are out there, those, people who are really only thinking of themselves, but I don't personally think they're the majority. So we can't let that get in the way of increasing our rentals, because the lack of rentals is really getting in the way of our economic development, our community development, all kinds of different things. So, anybody?
Yes, I'll vote for the fact that most of us are good people.
Jan, did they,
Yeah.
when you were on the planning board, did they take up this idea of the ADU before? No? You are muted, I think.
I was, because my phone was making noises. Sorry.
That's all right.
No, they did not. And to Olga's question about the tax piece of this, zoning, my assumption is that zoning, zoning doesn't have anything to do with taxes. And in order to get that tax abatement, the town had to ask the state for special legislation. So
Right.
it's just a totally separate piece. It's not, it shouldn't be part of the bylaw. Taxes have nothing to do with zoning.
Okay.
There was some discussion at some point that AADUs be made by right with maybe a review process and then special permit for ADUs. If they both require a special permit, I kind of see the planning board's point that it's probably going to cut down on the number of ADUs.
ADUs.
I'm sorry, AADUs. God, there's some. What's the incentive? What's the incentive to have an AADU other than doing something good for somebody else and the tax abatement, which I don't know how much that amounts to for most people.
The average, we heard, I've some bad news. Mike Travato is leaving.
Oh,
Oh, no.
God.
Yeah, so, but anyway, according to Mike, the average tax abatement was about $1,000.
oh, was it that high? Oh, okay.
I'm looking at the current tax abatement list that Olga got from Nancy Vale. Thank you, Olga. And so the tax abatement ranges from 1,000 up to 2,400 for one, and 2,800 because he's got 3 units.
Okay.
So it's not, it's not a lot.
No, I thought it was much less than that. Okay.
Mhm.
That's good information.
It's based on the size of your unit compared to the entire square footage of your property. So it's not based on anything else but that.
And
I
you get that on an ADU as well as an AADU.
Could you, repeat?
Do you get a tax abatement on an ADU and an AADU?
No,
Yes,
unless you could be renting
That's what
affordably.
confusion is.
right, but I guess if you are renting it affordably and you're going through the process of certifying both the amount you pay and the income of your tenant,
Then it's an AADU.
why not make it an AADU? Are you saying that the zoning requirements for both will be the same? There won't be any advantage in terms of setbacks or
The
No.
one advantage was,
the number of units?
no, well, there's the number of units because you technically you could have, and that I don't know how that's going to work in a combined bill that where there's fluidity. I don't know how that works. But the other piece as it is now, and again, I don't know how this would work in a combined fluid bill. Jerry had us take out the part that said that an ADU could be built in a previously non-conforming structure. So as it stands now, AADUs can be built in pre-existing non-conforming structures. So Jerry said, I don't feel right about that. And so that's fine. So you have a little stricter zoning requirements
Okay.
as the bylaws proposed draft was written at the last meeting. It's fluid.
Gary, I'm not 100% sure of this, but if your special permit says you are allowed to have an ADU, I don't think you can just all of a sudden decide to have an AADU or vice versa without going back to the zoning board.
I'm only referring to the tax, not necessarily the class of which you are, the tax abatement, not necessarily the class in which you have, the special permit was awarded.
Okay.
I think you're right, Jan.
And, well,
You
That
couldn't
was
just
planning boards,
fluidly go back and forth.
that's what they got excited about, though, that maybe you could. Just saying.
I'm not
And-
saying you couldn't, but you'd have to go back to the zoning board, I believe, to then ask for a
Right.
special permit for an
Perhaps.
ADU if you had an AADU and vice versa, because your special permit is for a very specific thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean,
Sharon, can you explain again, what are you protecting against by making it part of the AADU bylaw, some ability to go back and forth? Why make it one comprehensive as opposed to two separate?
You know, I liked it when it was two separate,
Yeah,
and I thought it was clear and simple, but it's, you know, these planning board conversations go in many different directions, and it's really hard to keep up with them. And then you have certain members who, you know, kind of pipe in whenever they feel like, and it's a very distracting process. And I've been now, this is like 3 planning board meetings in a row that we've been at and spoken at and been discussing for like an hour and a half at each of them. And we're barely making a little tiny bit of progress.
The reason to go back and forth from an AADU or an ADU is just the income change. You may not want to lose your tenant, but the reason to make it a special permit and not by right, and the value of the special permit, is that abutters are brought into the process for consideration. And maybe there's a good reason why they don't want extra people there. Who knows? But that seemed to be the reason to have a special permit.
but it does seem like if you take out the pre-existing non-conforming, I don't know offhand, but I think that's probably the majority of places in Wellfleet.
I agree. I think I'm going to work on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe that's one difference between the ADU and the AADU in the language of the bylaw.
It is, yeah.
No, I mean, in the future. Okay, so I think that the net is, we continue to work on the ADU. When is the next planning board meeting?
January 6th.
At 7
John had-
o'clock?
John had a question.
Yes,
Yeah.
John.
I want to reinforce what Gary just said. I think to me that where the optimal place to increase our density and get more rental units is in the downtown area, the Main Street, Commercial Street, where most of the houses are non-conforming. So I think if we take non-conforming out of that, we're going to end up with scattered units here and there in a very sort of suburban like arrangement, which I don't think is good for the town. I think we want to build density where we have density. So I would argue that they should not take out the exemption for pre-existing conditions.
I want to include language that says it's not more non-conforming, and just leave it at that, because I think that's in our bylaw already.
You know, I'd take that out because we don't, I mean, it's
To
going,
make it not more non-conforming.
well, because
I
if you
think-
increase your density, if you add, you know, let's say,
They may have a house that has 5 rooms in it and they can break it in half. That's not making it more non-conforming.
no, but if you have a
Yeah.
house that you can add an extra story downtown that will give you rental space, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Right, and that's not more non-conforming, as long as it's within the guideline, it's within the zoning bylaw to have a second story, let's say.
So, Olga,
not,
so I understand it, if you have a pre-existing non-conforming house that is zoned for 3 bedrooms, you could say, I'm making one of those bedrooms in my house a playroom, which frees up another bedroom, and I could create an ADU.
No, you could
AADU.
say, I'm gonna live in 2 bedrooms and I'm adding a kitchen into this 1-bedroom
Right.
space.
So you could do
There are a
that,
lot of ways of doing it.
yeah. I
Keeping,
think that's the big opportunity, or conversely, if you took that out, you would limit the number of places that people could actually make an ADU or an AADU. Sharon?
I just want to disagree with John for a minute here. I think there's a couple of things to remember. I mean, first of all, I think there's a place for ADUs scattered site throughout town. And I don't think, I think that they can either be inside somebody's house, they could be in a barn that's already there, they could be in a garage that's already there. You wouldn't even, and a lot of times you wouldn't even know that they were there. Or, you know, and I think we could say that because we know there's a lot of apartments that we don't know that they're there.
Or they're already there.
And the other thing is, you know, even in towns with the very least restrictive of ADU bylaws, where they really, it's by right and it's, you know, it's really not restrictive at all, they're only getting maybe 5 in a year. And those are towns that also have a town planner and housing coordinator. So it's not like there's going to be a massive quantity of ADUs all through town, turning it into, you know, suburbs. I just feel strongly about that. So we disagree.
All right, is there anything else on the ADU? Because we do have some other things on the AADU side. But is there any other questions on that? So on January 6th, if I remember correctly, at 7 o'clock, anyone who's interested, tune in to the planning board meeting and feel free to, you know, voice your opinion. I think it's unlikely, Sharon, regardless, if you're still in the drafting mode, I'll get to you in a second, that this is going to happen for this year's town meeting. Do you agree?
Disagree? You know, and it's the same thing that happened last year. And I think it's, you know, I feel obstructed, put it that way. I won't say anything that's more impolitic than that.
Jan, did you have a question or comment?
No, I just want to point out that if there's a quorum of our board that goes to that planning board meeting, we have to be very careful that we don't do any deliberating.
Okay, thank you.
It's true.
True. Okay, so Susan Spear had an idea, and myself and Sharon and she chatted about it a little bit, and it's taken on a little bit of a life. Do you want to explain the idea of the angel?
Well, having just
or Susan?
Having just heard the previous, do you want Sharon to
It
explain?
doesn't matter, either one. Go ahead.
Talk about your friend.
I was chatting with my across the street neighbor in my driveway the other day, and he asked what was happening with affordable housing. He's been interested in it all along. And, you know, I explained various aspects of the problem, and somehow we got into, I think I sort of said, you know, we're not going to have the 95 Lawrence Road units for a while, but maybe in the nearer term, there'd be possibilities for AADUs. And then we sort of came up with this concept that he would find, buy, get land on which he would build a house and a number of AADUs, and then he would rent them out, mostly as a way to help affordable housing in Wellfleet. Honestly, I don't really know if he's looking for tax abatements, or I guess he is. I mean, he's willing to, just donate a lot of the cost of this. But I think then I got a second person involved in this conversation the next day who was looking at it more from a charitable but also business perspective, so that for this investment of building this house, and neither one of them was looking for a house that they could live in, and as many as possible accessory dwelling units of one type or another, they would get some income from the rent and some benefit from the tax abatement. So, it would be a combination of doing good, but not having it all an out-of-pocket expense.
Okay. Sharon, you want to add what your thinking is on it?
Yeah, so I want to talk about that, and then I also just want to talk a little bit about our ADU support group, AADU support group, because I think this is part of it. So the AADU support group, which is Olga and Karen and I, decided we would sort of look at two different projects. One, and the whole goal is how do we support AADUs and make sure that they don't go away. And so one of our projects was to do this, working off of what Susan brought to our attention, was to create or write a letter or an essay or something to submit to the Independent about Wellfleet seeking housing angels, and it would go, I've written a very, very rough draft, but it would sort of go into the need and go into the projects that the Housing Authority and the Local Housing Partnership are working on now currently. And then we need the public's help. We can, government can't do it all. And we really need this to be a community effort if we want to keep, older people aging in place and younger people moving into town and raising their kids here and that kind of thing. So, and then there's a list of, my brainstorming of how to be a housing angel, which Susan's person is listed on there, but although that's, probably beyond the reach of most housing angels. So the list also includes things that would just be like, support housing initiatives, go to town meeting and be supportive. I wanted to say, I didn't say, and don't oppose. But again, I'm trying to be, political, so I don't want to burn any bridges. So that's the housing angel piece.
Offering to have an AADU on your property is certainly a financial smaller step than offering to buy land and build a house and 3 AADUs. So
Yes,
that would be possible for some people.
there's a range, there's a full range of
Right.
possibilities.
I was
So-
thinking about it more, and I was, myself, I was getting to the point where, having somebody in the house wouldn't be all bad to help, and we're, we're getting a little older, and I wonder if there aren't some significant number of people in Wellfleet that would at least consider that for a variety of reasons, and maybe we need to promote that better, both by way of publicizing it, but also providing some financial support for it. And, maybe we
And
should,
administrative support.
what?
And as we discussed the other day, administrative support.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
people
sure,
feel
make it easy,
uncomfortable about being
right.
a landlord.
Yeah. But, we have asked for a large sum of money, $500,000, to be placed into the housing trust, which is just getting started. And there's nothing, I think, that says we couldn't use some portion of that we, the partnership, couldn't make a proposal to the trust to say, I'll throw it out just as a ballpark idea, but that we will provide $50,000 worth of support if you create and maintain an AADU for X number of years, or
Mhm.
whatever that number is. And that if we could get that out in the springtime, we could hit the tax letter, the tax bills that go out to everyone with that kind of information, but also just generally about being a housing angel. Or for that matter, we could do a mailing ourselves to the same list. So I think it definitely is an idea that we should pursue. What do other people think?
So which idea, the being a housing angel or the,
Yes, being a housing angel, and if we could put something together to have some kind of financial incentive beyond the tax abatement, that would be good too.
oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think we need to look at ways, and that's, our support group hasn't gotten into that yet, but to really look at ways that we could provide financial incentives or
We did
support.
We did provide at one time a $10,000 loan, construction loan to put in, but Olga, what, didn't the CDP or some other entity have a much bigger incentive that you could use for this?
You're
I guess-
muted.
You're muted, Olga.
You- You're
Mute,
muted.
mute.
Mute.
I can hear you.
Olga, we can't,
We can't hear
we
you.
can't hear you, right.
Unmute.
I had
Yay.
$5,500 to create my unit and to bring my own up to code because there were issues with my own house.
Okay,
And at the end of 15 years of renting, the loan was forgiven,
how much was it, Olga?
$55,000.
So it was a significant amount of money.
Who lent it to you? Who is it from? Who lent it?
CDC.
Uh-huh.
There was a block grant, which is actually up for renewal again. I don't know who will get it in this current environment, but there was a federal block grant that came that was the basis of that program. And that money, actually, some of it has been repaid and we've used it for some housing things, although the bulk of it has gone into the general coffers of the town.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a program that worked.
And you might, something to think about. The average, well, I essentially got around $4,000 a year if you spread it over 15 years. And that's close to the average rent, the average tax exemption. So we could just eliminate the property tax for people who do an AADU.
That
And-
would take more special legislation, which I don't. that
I
would take-
guess it does. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
But let's see if we can't, if you have your working group, if you could, at the next meeting, come back with some more ideas about how we could do incentives for this, that would really grab people's attention. And I think we could really put together a campaign around this. And, you know, success is we would create 2, 3, 4, 5 units. Because it just struck me when we were talking about 95 Lawrence, it's going to be years before we actually have a place where people can live. And what are we going to do in the meantime to promote affordable rentals?
Mhm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Any
John
other
has-
com-
Gary?
any- Go ahead, John.
I know this sounds off topic, but I don't think it is. Wellfleet has reached a close to full build out status. There just isn't
Yeah.
that much private land, let alone public land available for any kind of housing. What's happening as we reach this build out status is that people are buying property and then tearing down the existing unit, house, to put a much larger structure there.
Mhm.
And that's going to be increasingly the pattern. I mean, right now it's the pattern along the coast, the beautiful views, but it's going to push inland soon as less and less property is available. And what that means is you've got a $400,000 house that gets torn down and replaced by a $900,000 house.
Mhm.
STEM has proposed, I think it's passed legislation now to limit that tear down phenomena.
Oh, really?
To me, the opportunity for us is if we can, move toward a Eastham act to sort of limit tear down phenomena, but to build into that an exception for units that are, if you tear down a $400,000 house, you can put a much larger unit there if you incorporate in the larger unit affordable house units.
Like that.
No, that's a lot down the future, but I think we're looking at a situation where we're losing housing, not, I mean, we're losing housing that's affordable and it's being replaced by unaffordable housing because you
Right.
can't build on empty lots anymore. There are no more empty lots.
See, that's the kind of thing that this neighbor of mine would be looking for, because it would accomplish so many different things at once. And he would use the main house that he rebuilt also as an affordable rental property. I mean, that's not a overall solution. People like him are going to be very unusual, but
But I do think if we need to do it as a two-pronged situation. One is limit the tear downs, but build into the exception to that the possibility of putting in affordable units.
John,
And
a
how-
couple years ago, we had to
I
do
remember.
some data work on the number of permits that the town had issued.
Uh-huh.
And don't hold me to this, but 3/4 of the new construction were tear downs. And so the actual number of houses increasing is very small,
Right.
which
We're
is
built
going
out.
back
There's
to
just
what
no
you're saying.
place.
There's so little land. Yeah, yes, Sharon.
Is there legislation, John? Is there some place where they have figured out a way to limit the tear downs? How do you do that?
They did that in East End. They've done it in other places.
Is that a zoning legislation or?
Yes, it's a zoning, they took, I think in East End, basically, they took what was the Park Service code and incorporated into the town.
Hmm.
All right, well, it's obviously a complex subject, but I think we can really do something here that would be beneficial and maybe actually produce some units. So I think it's something we should pursue. Sharon, maybe you could just send us the next time your group meets. It's just let folks know. I don't know if you do it via Zoom or some other way, but.
Well, we just do it by a phone hookup, but if we risk running into open meeting laws unless
Right.
we
Well,
then
It's
get
not a
into
big
it.
deal to post it a couple of days in advance. And it's really, it's a one item agenda.
Okay, we
So,
could do,
yeah, you might want to think about just some way to bring more people in and to work on this.
good. So
Okay,
can I just talk a little bit about these lists of AADUs?
sure, if you like. What?
Because I'm really confused. We have this one list from Nancy Vale about the current AADUs that are getting tax abatements, right? And there's like 8 of them plus the 3 that were not special permitted. They were pre-existing. And then there's this list that you got from Mary Rogers, is that her name?
No, Christine Bates.
Oh, Christine Bates, sorry. About AADUs, the special permits that have been granted for AADUs. It goes from 2004 up to 2019.
So just for everyone's benefit, Christine Bates is the secretary or administrator for the ZBA.
And so I cross-referenced the 2 lists and I found all the ones that are getting the tax abatements. That's great. And, there's 4 listed as withdrawn and 1 listed as expired. And I'm not quite sure what gets done when they're withdrawn or expired. Do they lose their stove or something like that? But then there's one I know that was Charlie Hemsler's that was sold to DCR. And there's 2 that Alfred I know is renting but not taking the tax abatement. But then that leaves like 18 of them that they're not taking a tax abatement. They haven't been withdrawn. They haven't expired. They're, some of them are even more than one unit. And so I don't know what happens when someone gets a special permit from the ZBA. Does that then go somewhere where there's somebody who's supposed to be monitoring that? Or is it just like disappear into the ether?
Don't know.
Well, I think that's really worth finding out.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? I have a suggestion for you, is give Sharon Inger a call.
Yeah,
She's the chair of the ZBA, and just ask her.
good idea.
She might know, or she might be able to get to the bottom of it. I have a feeling that withdrawn and expired has to do with that they didn't actually do the work. They didn't actually create the units.
Okay,
And so I think it's not that they put them in and their permit has expired, but more likely that they went through the process, but then decided for one reason or another not to do it.
but there are so many here.
Yeah, but I don't know is the answer, Sharon.
And so the question is, I mean, if they're being rented year round, fine. That's, I don't even want to touch them if they're being rented year.
Right. We just
But
want to
if
better
they're-
understand. Yeah, we just want to better understand the data.
Yeah, if they're short-term rentals, then that's a problem. If people are getting special permits for AADUs and then
Right.
they're turning them into short-term rentals, that's a problem that we have.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
Jan-
I'm going to suggest for the sake of, sorry.
Jan has, sorry.
I just want to understand a little better what you said, Sharon. You're saying that there are 18 special permits out there that you can't account for, that you don't know what happened with those particular properties?
Pretty much. Because I have this list of ones that are getting current tax abatements.
Right.
And then I have this list from, tell me your name again. I'm gonna write it down.
Christine
Vale.
Bates.
Nancy Vale?
Yeah,
Bates.
Christine
No.
Bates from
Oh,
Christine
ZBA.
Bates.
Well, Christine Bates is the zoning list.
Yes, ZBA, right.
Right. So you're saying that there are 18 properties on Christine's list that the zoning board gave a special permit to them for an AADU, but there's no trace of them on Nancy Vale's list? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Well, it is a problem though, if they have a special permit for an AADU and they're renting it not affordably, because they're not allowed to do that.
Well, not affordably or short-term, either of those is. a
They're not
problem.
allowed to do either one of those, but
Right.
you can get a special permit. And if you just don't act on it, you can do that too, but
Sure.
Who's monitoring that?
Well, that's,
bring
That's-
what though? The ZBA gives you a special permit and we're done with it after that.
Right. I was going to
If
say,
there's a complaint, somebody needs to complain to the building inspector. How does town hall follow up on?
so maybe that's the next stop, is to go to the building inspector and say, ask them. And I know we just have a new building inspector, so he might be kind of still trying to find his way through town. But I mean, it just sort of feels like town is really kind of chaotic right now.
Yes.
but
Lots
you know what, Sharon, I think before you go to the building inspector, let's see if we can better understand the data that we have
Okay,
by talking to ZBA
yep,
and report back. And again, we're not an enforcement entity, and the last thing we want to do is,
kick
Great.
people out if they've got a year-round rental.
you
but-
got it, you got it.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Yeah.
in the interest of time, I'm gonna, are there any other comments on this topic?
I was just gonna say, Gary, that once you talk to the building inspector, he might
Yeah,
feel.
that's what I
obligated.
said. I'd
something
hold off on.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll talk to Sharon.
okay. All right, anything else on this? But you'll let us know, your group will have another meeting and let us know when that is. But at a minimum, January 6th is the planning board meeting.
Right,
All right.
Okay,
right.
so,
It's some holidays, so we might not meet, for a week or two.
no, I appreciate that. We did sign a contract with Homeless Prevention to provide emergency housing assistance, and we have actually made our first award under that. for someone whose need was substantial and was certainly exacerbated by the COVID. So if there are folks out there, I have a question. Do you all get the housing e-newsletter?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
If you don't, I'm happy to send it out again, and or if you just go to the site, you can sign up. 95 Lawrence, I don't think I have anything more to report than we have already, except that Mike's leaving is going to be, we have to find a new contracting officer. 95 Lawrence, and I'm hoping that doesn't delay it any more than it's already delayed. So, but we'll have to see what happens with that.
Do we know why he's leaving?
I don't. I did hear that he's going to Harwich, but you know, he lives in Hyannis.
Yeah, it's a long drive.
Yeah, it is a
He
long.
can't get housing, can't afford it.
I'm gonna have to make a sudden departure, which I know doesn't disturb everyone,
Oh, that's all right.
except someone has to take notes. And I cannot be late for the 8th night Hanukkah celebration
All
with my
right.
grandchildren, who I'm not going to see for the holidays. So,
All right. Well, thank you so much, Susan. I have your, I wanted to let you know just very quickly, your neighbor did make a generous donation. So
oh, good.
thank him very much. And for everyone's benefit, we got a substantial donation of $3,500 from Ames. So next time you're in AIM or across anybody there, thank them for that generosity.
I
So
shopped all
I'll take notes until this point, and then
All right.
you can figure it out.
I think in the interest of time, and I can just report back that we are having conversations with the DPW about potentially using some, that's too strong a word. We're desperate to find some other land that we can build on, and that's the last place we have to look. So we hopefully will have a conversation with them in the not too distant future and let you know about land. And that tomorrow, Friday, is the first meeting of the trustees of the new housing trust, which were appointed on December 8th at the select board meeting. And I'm one of the trustees, so I will report back on that. Sharon.
Karen had an interesting idea about, you know, we were talking about vacant town-owned land, and I brought up the woodlots up
Yep.
there by Red Bell Way, and then
Yep.
they didn't have access.
Yep.
And her question was, well, are those expensive houses that are near there? And if one of them went on the market and it wasn't too expensive, could we buy it and create an easement? Just a thought.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems
Karen,
like every
maybe-
house is expensive these days, but I don't really know.
Well,
Like I think, should we build a house and some AADUs? We the housing community, or we the trust, but we will cross that bridge further on. Thank you, Karen, for the idea. All right, so the last thing I think, unless someone has anything else they want to put forward, and I apologize, we got a late start. But the next meeting date is January 21st, Thursday, January 21st at 4 o'clock. You, Sharon, might host a meeting sooner, but the next full meeting, does that work for people? Yeah,
Yeah, sure. You said 4 o'clock, Gary?
4 o'clock on the 21st, and obviously I
Yep.
will send out notices about that. All righty. Anything else that anyone has?
is it okay if Karen and Olga and I
Yes.
still
You're not a
communication?
quorum. 3 people would not represent a quorum.
Right, okay, that's what I thought, especially Olga's not even on this committee, so.
Right. No, I
Okay.
think that would be super. Oh,
Okay.
that's a good point. So you're actually only just 2 members.
Mhm.
All righty. Anything else that anyone has? Well, I won't speak to you again, I think, many of you, but have a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody, or Happy Hanukkah, as the case may be.
Happy
Uh,
solstice.
Yes, happy solstice. We dodged a bullet today on the snow, so that was good. All right, thank you all.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays, everybody.
Yes,
Bye.
Motion to
Happy
adjourn.
holidays.
thank you, John. Be well, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.